My name is Greg Nilgis. This video is in support of Sonoran Desert Institute's FTH 212 Striker Module 2 assignment. The date is 4 June 2024. The references for this course were the Module 2 lecture, and there's no live ammunition in the work area. I have a clear firearm. I do have some snap caps loaded in the magazine for expedience. I have visually and physically inspected firearm. We have a clear firearm, and I will add that there were no leftover parts on this when I did it. It's going to be this part one's going to be a multi subparts, if you will. First, the safety processes and what I did to avoid losing parts. So the first safety process or part of the safety that's very important is wearing safety glasses. You are working with very strong springs here under quite a lot of tension. The next thing I think is important for the safety end is to understand the task at hand prior to executing the task. If you can visualize what you're going to be doing, you're better prepared on the safety end of see what may go wrong. The other thing to keep from losing parts, work in a confined area if you can. I'm not talking about where you can't move around, but I'm talking about not a huge room and a clean area so that if a part does fall or go flying, it doesn't have very far to go and it doesn't get lost in clutter. In my example, I did it in the dining room, on the dining room table, and behind me where there are a couple of HVAC vents in the floor. I covered those with a towel because I had not done that. Certainly, I would have stood a very good chance of dropping a part down in the HVAC vent. Evaluate tools used. I use, for the most part, bench block, punches, brass hammer, picks or a pick, a hemostat, locking hemostat, and a long flat head screwdriver. And they all worked well for the task at hand. We'll continue on with that. Recommended tools. Out of those, definitely I recommend a pick. It comes in handy in maneuvering that the magazine release spring. Hemostats, very, particularly ones with a little curved end on them, because you can lock them in there and really place that magazine magazine release spring where it belongs, down in this little groove. A long, small flat head screwdriver is what I use to get that out of its area within the magazine release button itself when you try to remove it. And roll pin punch and starter punches, I think, are worth their money in gold and should have been included with this course. The roll pins on this firearm, I don't like them. That's one of the things I don't like about it. Particularly the back one is a major pain to put in. You definitely should have a roll pin holder to start it and a roll pin punch with a little nipple on it to use it to keep from drifting off and damaging. To do this with a regular punch, I could see damage to the grip easily and just marring the heck out of the firearm perhaps and destroying that pin. How to avoid damaged parts. Understand what's entailed in assembly, disassembly prior to doing it. And then use a proper tool for the job like we just discussed. Evaluate readiness to do this kind of work. I feel very prepared to work on a striker fired gun, particularly assembly, disassembly. I've done it a number of times, not just this firearm, but the one I used in Module 1. I've had that one for 12, 14 years and have used it or disassembled and assembled it. It's kind of like riding a bike, even if you haven't done it for a couple years. I do expect to continue to learn and develop techniques as my experience develops. And the last thing we're going to do is demonstrate. We're going to function check the firearm with snap caps and demonstrate the cycle of operation. So again, we have a safe firearm. For practical sake, we'll go ahead and function check the trigger. I'm going to pull the trigger without pulling the trigger safety, and it does not go. So the trigger safety functions properly. I'll go ahead and insert snap caps. And now we just did the feeding, chambering, locking, and pre-cocking of the striker. Now we're going to do, well, as we pull the trigger, we're going to continue the cocking of the striker, and we're going to simulate the firing. And next would be the unlocking and extracting and ejecting. And then we're going to test the reset of the trigger. Reset's good. Again, we're going to fire the firearm. And it locks back on the end. So function check's good, and cycle of operation, all 8 steps, I believe, were demonstrated. Okay, for part 3 of this video, we have no live ammunition in the workspace, no firearm in the workspace. First of all, let me get my references out of the way. Ruger.com, SmithWesson.com, and Heritage MFG or HeritageManufacturing.com, as well as thetruThaboutGuns.com. Truthabouttheguns.com was an article titled "The Truth About the Effects of Twist Rate and Gun Barrel Lengths" by John Wayne Taylor, October 20th, 2020. So my research on both Ruger and Smith & Wesson's website indicated no difference in twist rate on the firearms they sell, from their shortest barrel length, in the Ruger's case is just under 2 inches, and their longest for the 357 Magnum, their longest for 6.5 inches. Both of those barrel lengths was 1 16 twist. For Ruger's 44 Magnum, 2.5 inch barrel versus a 9.5 inch barrel, both of them 1 20 twists, and I found that correlated as well to Smith & Wesson's website. The differences at Heritage Manufacturing's website, they sell their little single action revolver with a 2.5 and a 3-inch barrel, and that's a 1 10 twist, with their long 16-inch barrel, which is practically, well, it is carbine length barrel, but it's on a handgun. It's a 1 16 twist. Now, why the 22 has a different twist rate than the 44 and the 357 Magnum, I cannot speculate. We understand, though, that the handguns are going to stabilize the bullet enough, sufficiently, in that short distance with that's given twist rate, such that they don't have to tighten it up, as opposed to perhaps the 22 long rifle has to have a little tighter twist rate for those shorter barrels. And twist rate is also more common to be discussed in AR platforms, particularly 223, 5.56, based on the bullet weight, not so much the length of the barrel. As in addition to the bullet weight, and I think it's more so probably than the weight, is the length of the bullet. It needs the longer the bullet is, the faster it needs to, or the shorter period of time it needs to be stabilized in, so the quicker twist rate. So that's what I've got to offer there. I will say, closing with this, the truthaboutguns.com article I referenced, this is a quote: "The faster the twist rate, the more resistance on the bullet," end quote. That makes absolute sense, right? Newton's laws, right? The more force that the rifling is putting back against the bullet, there's going to be more pressure built up as well. And then he goes on to say, as the bore is more perpendicular to the lands, there's more resistance as the bullet travels the length of the barrel. Physics, right? We're talking about Newton's laws in physics. And he goes on further to say it also leads to a slightly increased recoil and a slightly shorter barrel life. And he's talking about there the faster twist rates. So that's I'm going to close with those quotes. Gives you something to think about. We could talk about this probably for more than the 10-minute allocation for this entire assignment, but that's all I've got for now. Okay, for part 2 of the video, we're going to demonstrate how to properly measure barrel length. And so we have no live ammunition in the workspace. We'll remove our feed source. It's empty. And we'll do a visual and physical inspection of the firearm. It is free of ammunition, so we have a safe firearm. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to, with the barrel completely closed against the breech face, we're going to take a blunt object and we're going to insert it into the barrel until it bottoms out on the breech face, and then we're going to make a mark with a grease pencil. I like to use the flat side of a piece of painter's tape, which I've already done here, and then we're going to take that out and we're going to measure it from the tape mark to the end, and I get 3.9 inches for this PSA Dagger.